I'm sitting there and saying to men, look, life as a man is shit. It's always been shit. It's never been good. When men wake up and say, I'm depressed and life is hard and I'm sad and I'm struggling right now, I say, okay, throughout history, men have always struggled. Happiness is for children and women. Name a time in history it was better to be a man. Was it better to be a man in World War II? Was it better to be a man on the Titanic? Was it better to be a man in the Napoleonic Wars? Was it better to be a man when you were sitting in Vienna and the Mongol horde arrived, ready to decapitate any male and enslave all the females? When's it ever been good to be a man? Building the pyramids, was that fun? It's always sucked. The only time being a man ever is good is if you become an exceptional man, which is even something feminists admit. Because feminists sit and complain about men and say, well, men have this, men have that. But they're talking about 2% of men.
Fascinating.
They don't talk about all men. They say men have the best jobs. 2% of men have the best jobs. Most men carry trash. So you're talking crap. So everyone accepts that the best possible human experience that exists is the top 2% of men. Anything below that sucks as a man. You're better off being a chick. So what I say to men is, look, life's hard. It's always going to be hard. It's always going to suck. It always has. The only way to get out is to become excellent and perform at a level where your echelon is so high that you get to live this brand new experience. You need to become strong and smart and interesting and charismatic. You need to become rich, powerful, well-known, connected. You need to do it. I think that as a man, your happiness comes from feeling respected over feeling loved. And the reason perhaps you're happy now is because you have more respect for yourself because of the decisions you're making. And you have self-respect.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of men, even if they have self-respect, if nobody else respects them, they're struggling. I think male depression can be fixed with respect.
I want to tap into depression. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that it's massively overdiagnosed. I say depression isn't real because I speak in absolutes. I think the idea of feeling depressed is real. I don't feel like it's a clinical disease that you catch from the sky and it can't be fixed. I feel like depression is feedback, pain is feedback, and your mind and body is telling you something must change. And if you make those changes, you will feel happier. I don't buy into the idea that it is a disease. I think it's situational, and you must change your situation and your actions and your decisions to feel better. And that's why I say it's not real. It's not a disease. I do not believe in depression. That's just who I am as a person. I don't believe in it. I do not believe in things that take power away from me. So, and people sit there and they try very hard to convince me it's real, which is actually quite interesting because it's always usually depressed people who sit there and try very hard to defend this idea. If you're so scared, if depression's so terrible, why are you sticking up for it? Why are you fighting so hard to convince me it's such a powerful force? Why shouldn't you be doing the opposite? Shouldn't you be listening to me? Whose team are you on? Like, do you want to be depressed? Like, it's insanity. These people are so desperate to push this idea. Said this many times before. I don't believe in things that take away power from me. I don't care if depression is real. I don't care if I'm wrong. I don't believe in something that takes away power from me because I can't become depressed if I don't believe in depression. And that allows me to shield my mind from the idea of being a depressed person. I can feel depressed temporarily, but I can never become a depressed person because it doesn't exist. You can lock me in a Romanian jail cell for 93 days with cockroaches. I will not be depressed. I will feel a little bit sad, of course, but I will never become a depressed person because I don't believe in it. And when I say this, depressed people are like, no, depression's real. It's ruined my life. It's taken everything from me. Depression's real. Depression's real. I said, you sound like it's promotional team. You sound like it's their God. Team.
It's their God. They're worshiping it.
You're worshiping it because it gives you a cure-all excuse for your monumental failures, as opposed to waking up and going, you know what? Maybe I'm a fuck up. Nothing to do with depression. Maybe I've just been fucking up. Maybe depression isn't real and I've just been fucking up and I should fix a few of these things.
What have I been reaping?
Absolutely. And you'd be amazed how depression will lose power over your life and lose its ability to destroy your life if you stop giving it so much respect and just wake up and say, let me fix X, Y, and Z. What can I control? Let's pretend I'm completely wrong, right? We can look at situational depression like you just described. We can talk about brain imbalance and chemical imbalance. We can talk about clinical depression that you get and it's chronic and there's nothing you can do about it, whatever. Let's pretend all these things are completely true. The best option, the best thing to do is still to get up, be an adult, control your emotions, be stoic, and do the things you're supposed to do day after day. Laying in bed and doing nothing is never going to be the best option. Best option is still to go to the gym, to work hard, to run your business, to be successful. So it doesn't matter. We're talking about the different positions on the chessboard. But if the rules of the game remain the same, regardless of the position you're still trying to win, you still have to do the same things. So does it even matter at this point? If you come along and say he's depressed because of X and he's depressed because of Y and he's depressed because of Z, and the answer to all of them is still the same thing, then I don't give a fuck why you're depressed. All I know, what I will state as a matter of fact, is this world is hyper competitive, especially as a man. Most men are walking through life and they don't realize that it's constant competition. I was driving here. Even as I was driving here, I was looking out the window and I was looking at all these people just walking around. One of them had a fucking croissant. One of them was dressed like a dickhead because it's London. He thinks he fucking looks cool. Looks like a fucking moron.
We've all seen them.
Yep, moron. Some of the dude just talking shit on the phone. Some of the guy with headphones in, waiting to be fucking murdered, wouldn't even hear it coming. And all these NPCs, I'm just looking at them going, do they realize they're in endless, constant competition? Every single pound they want, someone else wants. Every single girl they want, someone else wants. There are people like me out here. I will destroy, you could get all 30 of them in a room and I will sit by myself and absolutely annihilate them in any single metric. And they're just sitting there just fucking floundering and wandering through life unaware of how competitive the world is.
Well, and whinging how unfair it is.
And how unfair it is. And this is my point. If the world is truly that competitive, you do not have time to be depressed because it's a non-competitive mind state. You could be depressed for X, Y, Z, whatever. I'm not depressed. And I want the money you want, and I want the girl you want, and I want the status you want, and the car you want, and the house you want. And I'm going to get it, and you're fucking not. This is the thing about society and MSM and all this garbage and the Matrix. They try and convince you, don't worry if you're being a loser because people feel sorry for you and you'll get attention for it and you'll be okay in the end. And it's all this temporary fixes of dopamine by saying, I'm sad. Don't worry, bro. You'll be okay. But it's bullshit. They don't care long term. The world doesn't care. Nobody really cares. Chicks don't care. Business doesn't care. You are going to fail. It's kind of interesting because everyone pretends they give a fuck, but nobody does. Especially women. And I know I get attacked for women, but women truly don't give a fuck. If you ask a woman the kind of man she wants, she will never say depressed or sad. Ever. She wants a man who is ultra capable, ultra competent. I've literally had women say to me, you know what I love being around you? I'm like, what? I don't have to think. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I just turn up and like, we just walk in the hotel and everyone, staff do anything we want and the jet's just on the runway and we just land and I'm in this beautiful place and I don't even know where I am and I get to just turn my brain off and it's great. Like, they want someone who is fun and spontaneous and charismatic and successful. They don't have time for sad dudes. They don't care. So the world doesn't care. The world has never given a shit about sad men. So if you're going to sit there and self-diagnose yourself as a sad man, you're going to have a shit life and nobody's ever going to give a fuck and you're going to perpetually lose forever. And that is your decision. I am so scared of being that person. The idea of that terrifies me to the point where I don't even want to accept that as a reality that can possibly exist. I don't give a shit what happens to me in my life. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care if the worst, most heinous things I can possibly imagine happen to me. I know that my sadness, my depression will be temporary because I will never stay a loser. It is against my creed. It's not in my DNA. I disagree that if you feel depressed, I disagree that you cannot affect it and change your life and take control and fix yourself and feel happier. I disagree with that.
Do you think
I refuse to accept that there are people out there who cannot become happy, contented individuals. I refuse to accept we live in a world where God has created people who, no matter how hard they work and how good their life becomes, can't be happy. I don't accept that. I accept that the universe is a very giving place and that God loves all of us. And if you try your best and you work hard, you can become a better person. When I say depression isn't real, I'm saying that because I don't believe in things that can take away power from me. If I believed in depression, I would have been depressed in jail. But I can't be depressed if I don't believe in it. If you don't believe in ghosts, how can you be haunted? You have two people in a haunted house. One believes in ghosts, one doesn't. There's a knock in the night. One wakes up, calls an exorcist, is terrified, looks for a ghost. The other guy doesn't believe in ghosts. Knock in the night, goes back to sleep. It's the belief in the ghost that gives it the power. If I don't believe in depression, I believe in feeling depressed. Sure, we're humans, we have emotions. Sometimes we feel depressed, sometimes we feel happy. I don't believe in the idea of becoming a depressed person who has depression. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's possible for me. So if I don't believe in it, how can it happen? I don't believe in depression. So why would I not adopt the mindset that makes me the most capable predator I can possibly be? Why not adopt the mindset that makes me as competent and as fearsome as possible? If you have to install software in your own mind, why would I not install software that makes me capable of not only driving a Bugatti and flying on private jets, but sitting in a Romanian dungeon covered in cockroaches? I need to be able to do all of it. So why would I believe in something that made me incapable? I don't believe in depression because I think that even the belief in and of itself, when you feel depressed, you'll start to consider, maybe I have depression. Then you go see a psychiatrist who tells you have depression and they want you on pills. It's the belief that goes down the spiral. If I feel sad, I go, I'm depressed today, I'll be fine tomorrow. I do not believe it's a disease that you catch from the sky and you cannot affect.
I believe that no matter what happens, I believe you have control of your own mind and you can fight against it. I believe if you change your circumstances in your life, you may feel different. I'll give you a quick example. I had a guy who emailed me saying he was clinically depressed and he was going to kill himself. I obviously am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor. I told him, because I replied to my emails. I said, have you been to a psychiatrist? He said, yes, I'm clinically depressed. I've been on these pills, this amount of time. I'm on antidepressants, it doesn't work. I said, I don't know what to say to you besides this. And he said he lost his girlfriend, that's why I became clinically depressed. I said, listen, go to the gym, get a six-pack first. Once you've got a six-pack, email me again. If you still feel like killing yourself, I don't know what else to say to you. I'd say, strong body is a strong mind, go train. He went, he started sending me progress pictures, emailing me him getting in better shape, and eventually got a six-pack. He's now a professional bodybuilder. And he said, I can't believe I was considering that. I feel so much better, etc. The doctor was telling him he was clinically depressed and couldn't cure it. He started taking control of his own life, and now he felt better. I say the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you. You're only going to be cared about based on how useful you are. You have the chance to build yourself up and become a superhero if you're prepared to do the hard work and be indefatigable enough to never quit. But if you're going to stand around and wait for a handout, nobody's going to ever respect you. And I think that a lot of people have forgotten about how difficult and how competitive it is as a man. We're always in constant competition with each other. And it's your duty as a man to stand up and say, I want to be as important and strong and good-hearted and God-fearing as possible. And I need to work hard to achieve those things.
Perhaps I was sad every time I did exactly what I was supposed to do and trained anyway. Perhaps I was afraid when I fought anyway. Perhaps I was tired when I worked anyway. This is how you get ahead in life. I don't have an ounce of sympathy for these people who sit here and say, well, I feel this way, so I can't. Then don't do it. The winners are at the top, and the winners at the top don't give a shit about how they feel. Why am I going to ignore how I feel and make sure I'm constantly performing regardless, flawlessly, and then sit and go, oh, but he doesn't feel good, so he's allowed to fuck up. No, you are not. You're not allowed to fuck up to your ancestors or to God or to yourself. You have to perform. This is what being a man is about. The baseline of masculinity is doing things you don't feel like doing. The thing that makes a good man a man is that he does what he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to work and he works anyway. He doesn't want to get up, he gets up anyway. That's the whole point of it. You can't sit there as a man and say you don't feel like it. You're not allowed to not feel like it. You're supposed to do it anyway, regardless. So when a man sits there and says, oh, but you don't understand, I'm struggling with motivation. If you are struggling with the motivation to be a winner, then stay a fucking loser. If the path was easy, everybody would walk it and it would lead nowhere. 100 people start the path, 99 fall off because it is difficult, and the one person who makes it to the end gets the gold. If all 100 made it to the end and the gold was divided by 100, it wouldn't even be worth anything. The difficulty gives it value. The fact that it is difficult to do is the key component into the fact you want it in the first place.
You need to see bad things as a blessing because they're the building blocks to make you the man you want to be. When people say to me, this bad thing happened to me, I say, good. This girl left me, good. I lost all my money, good. This is your chance to take all of that negative emotion, all of those building blocks, and turn yourself into a man that prevents these bad things happening to them ever again.
I think that a lot of people don't understand that it's all of the challenges and struggles that's going to make them, it's either going to make or break them. I don't read studies very often, but I was sent a study about stress from somebody. It's probably the best study I ever read. And it's talked about the placebo effect of stress. And it said that they took some of the most stressed people in the world, CEOs, etc. And the ones who believed that stress was really bad for them were dying earlier because of the cortisol inside of their blood. And they said stress was really bad for them, they were having heart attacks. But the ones who believed that stress was good for them and it made them perform, I perform under pressure, stress is good for me, they were living longer. So the same drug inside of their blood, how they framed it inside of their mind had different effects on their body. So from that point onwards, even though I already thought this way, I knew I was the right way. I knew it was the right way to think innately because I've done pretty good in life that way. But this confirmed it. Every time I feel stressed or under pressure, I get excited. I hate to not be stressed. I wake up and I'm like, everything's fucked. Good. Yes. Like, that's just how I am, right? But it's how you look at the problems and how you use them to fuel you. So the question was, what's the problem for the average man today? What's the biggest problem? I think there's a whole host of problems. But what you have to do is frame it inside of your mind and understand that all of those problems are going to allow you, give you the fuel and the unlimited motivation that you need to become a successful and beautiful individual if you frame it in the right way. If you take a man and give him a life shielded from problems and he never has any to face, I guarantee you he's terrible at being a man. The best men in the world have gone through shit. That's why women love scars. Because it didn't kill you. That's the whole point of it, right? So the best thing you can do as a man is look and go, okay, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard. I feel negative because these are all so difficult. I'm struggling with X, Y, Z. Let me internalize all of that and turn it into a superpower. Let me become genuinely uncomfortable with my situation in life and go and fix things. Because, like I said, the universe is absolutely and utterly very giving. And if you truly hated being in the position you were in, you wouldn't be there very long. Yeah. So I think that the number one problem with the world today and the biggest problem that men face isn't the problems themselves. It's just the way that they've been taught to mentally frame issues. People think when bad things happen to them that somehow they're a victim to the universe and bad things only happen to me and this is so terrible. They don't understand that bad things happen to everybody, and the most successful person you know had all those, probably maybe even worse, at least the same bad things happened to them. They just framed it differently and used it. That's the difference. So I don't pray for an easy life. Yeah. I pray for a life of difficulty that allows me to become a better and better person. I pray to become more competent to handle problems. This is who I pray to become. I don't pray that nobody hurts me. I pray to be able to fight. So it's just a different mentality. I think a lot of people build their mindsets around trying to feel good. So that's why we were talking earlier about people who want to ignore the idea of personal responsibility or self-accountability, because they feel better if they pretend it's not a real thing. They feel better if they pretend everything's someone else's fault. A lot of people's mental model and how they view the world is based around them feeling as good as possible. So people are basing their mindsets around trying to feel good. I have always tried to base my mindset around absolute competence regardless of how I feel. And there are certainly disadvantages to that. There are times you're going to be a lot more pessimistic, or you're going to be a lot more stressed, or a lot more, pissed off about certain things than others. Yeah, that can be seen as a downside. But like I said, I use all of those things for unlimited motivation to propel my endless upward trajectory. But if you construct a mindset that allows you to be as competent as possible, as opposed to feel any different or feel better, then you're going to naturally come to the conclusions I've come to. You're as competent as possible if you believe you can affect absolutely everything about your life. You're as competent as possible if you believe absolutely everything that's happened to you, whether good or bad, is completely your fault. You're as competent as possible if you believe the bad things that happen to you are going to allow you to work harder and become even better. When bad things happen to me, the first thing out of my mouth is good. Andrew, this happened. Good. Good. Now I'm really pissed. Good. This mindset I've constructed allows me to be as fearsome a competitor as possible. It allows me to be a feared opponent in any realm of human endeavor, and that's the point of a mindset. Why would you have a mental model or a mentality that made you anything less? In the ultra competitive world that we've just discussing that everybody wants the things you have, why would you absorb information or construct a mental model that doesn't allow you to be as competitive as possible? I am a feared competitor in anything I do. Anyone who's up against me at anything is going to feel a degree of nervousness just because it's me. It doesn't matter what it is. If you say, look, you're going to go learn how to play piano, and you're going to play against someone else who's never played piano, and you're going to learn, and that guy's Andrew Tate. You're going to be like, oh, for fuck's sake. I can't even play piano. But part of them is going to be like, oh, not Tate. Even though I have no piano experience, because they just know me. They know my mindset. They know my determination. They know I'm stubborn. They know I don't quit. They know I'm going to win. That's just who I am. So I've constructed a mental model that allows me to be competent and to always succeed. And that's how I've come to the conclusions I've come to. And I truly, once again, don't understand how people go through the world with any other mental model. I get asked all the time, but what do you feel? Or what about happiness or depression? That doesn't even, how I feel doesn't cross my mind. I don't know how else to explain it. There are days where I'm pissed off or sad or happy. It doesn't cross my mind. It's just like, I woke up, whatever mood I happen to be in, I have things I need to do. It's a busy day. I need to go training before he gets here. I had a meeting with the bank at 7:15 a.m. I have shit to do. I didn't cross my mind if I was happy, sad, excited. I just had to work. Yeah. So I think my mental model, to a degree, I'm certainly not a person who doesn't feel emotions, because we're all human. I certainly do. But I've never prioritized them in any regard. I haven't built a mental model that affects, I haven't put them in the middle of my mental model and then affected my actions based on how I feel for each one. It's absolutely and completely the opposite. I would love to do a podcast on a day where I'm particularly sad and a podcast on a day when I'm particularly happy. And I guarantee you wouldn't be able to tell the fucking difference. So that's what allows me to be competitive, right? Because if you're competitive, if you want to be the most competitive predator on the planet, you have to be able to hunt in the day and the night. You have to be able to do both. You have to be able to perform when you're happy and sad. You can't only be able to perform when you're happy. You can't only go to the gym when you're motivated. You can't only be a competent person when your life's going well, because when your life's not going well, you're no longer competent. Then you're going to lose to people like me. And it's player versus player. If you're the kind of person who can only do well when you're happy and you're competing against someone like me who can do well all the fucking time, guess what?
you lose. So my mental model, the answer is most of my opinions are just based around constructing a mental model that allows me to be brutally competitive. I believe that I am currently sad, but I have work to do, and eventually I will feel better. You cannot try and make me adopt thinking that will reduce my competitiveness as an individual. So I don't believe in things that take power away from me. I don't believe in things that make me less competitive, and I don't adopt mental models that make me less competitive. Every single mental model I have are the most efficient ones I could find. To the mental model I found that if I adopt, I become a more fearsome predator. That's it. So this is how I've come to all of my conclusions as an individual.
Struggle is extremely important for a man. You should be looking to inject struggle into your life permanently. If you're injecting struggle and that struggle solving those problems lead to a positive place, once you become addicted to it, you're going to become a machine of monumental achievement. Would you play a video game if it was easy? If you could never die? I mean, cheats get boring pretty quick. You play it because it's hard. That's the whole point of it. You're supposed to struggle with it. You're supposed to suffer with it. So if I woke up and everything was just perfect, that'd be great for a few weeks. But if you just wake up and nothing ever goes wrong, I think that'd be quite depressing in its own way. That's the beauty of life, is the up and the down, because there's no light without dark. And the solutions I come to are pretty boring when I say you need to have a bunch of money and important friends and a bunch of visas and a bunch of passports. But it is the primary solution in regards to adaptability. Not many people can go live on Fiji. I could, if I wasn't in this matrix attack. But that's the point. You get too big, you get in a matrix attack. But let's say I had my money and I'd shut up and there's a nuclear war, I can live in Fiji. How? Well, I can get a private plane instantly and I can go and live there because I have a residence in Fiji. Now, how do you have a residence in Fiji? Like, there's things you can do.
Yeah.
You have to prepare for the worst, which goes back into the question you asked me earlier. Am I paranoid? Probably. And there'll be a day when everyone's like, thank God you're paranoid. It's like, I'm the most paranoid guy. Yeah, perhaps. But that's what preparedness is. But for the common man and the average person, what are the solutions to these problems? I'm open to hearing yours, because unless we talk about people and collectivism and people waking up and to some degree revolution and people understanding that everything's a scam, that's great. But I'm really scared of the new system they build off the back of this broken one. Like, how is this a democratic society? Nobody agrees with any of these leaders.
No.
Who are they? How did they get there? Why do they do the things they do? Who's telling them to do it? Why do they vote how they vote? Nobody's happy with them at all. In any Western nation, not just America, in any Western nation, every democratic nation, everyone's pissed off.
Yeah.
And somehow they have all the control and all the power. And then you sit and you start to look into, well, how does a democracy work? Money. I get it now. Money. Well, who has all the money? The elites who are above the government. Okay, well, then it's all a fucking scam from the beginning. It's kind of interesting. I was in Belarus like 5 or 6 years ago. And I couldn't believe that Minsk was cleaner and more beautiful than Bucharest, because I expected it to be kind of like Bucharest, rough around the edges a bit, you know? And it was very clean, very nice, very well organized, perfect pavements, very beautiful city. And I was talking to a Belarusian girl, and she was like, well, yeah, you have democracy in Romania. So if they want to fix a road, they have to go to the parliament and discuss fixing the road, and then a contract goes to a company, and then X amount of money gets stolen. And then you go, if Lukashenko drives on the road and there's a hole, and he says, fix that hole, it's fixed. That's it. Now, I'm not advocating for kingdoms. I'm not advocating for a complete lack of democracy. I'm not, because that is a 50-50 coin flip. You might have a good leader.
Yeah.
You might have a bad leader, of course. But there are certainly certain countries in the world now which are benefiting from the fact that you know who's in charge. In the West, I ask myself often, who's in charge of me? Who is my leader? Who's in charge? Like, don't you think the first thing you would do if you walked onto a boat, or where's the captain?
Yeah.
We need to fix this boat. Who's the captain? Don't know. Maybe him. They say it's him, but someone's calling him on the phone all day. Who calls him? Don't know. Is that person on the boat? Don't know. Well, they're on another boat. Well, they're on land. Like, what's going on? We don't even know who's in charge of us. And if you try and find out, you end up in jail. So it's kind of scary and very interesting, because I think for responsibility, you need to have accountability. To sit and say, okay, who's responsible for this mess? That person needs to be accountable for the mess. There is a mess here. It's this person's fault. But we somehow have this weird system where no matter what bad happens, they aikido the accountability to someone else. No matter what good happens, they try and take accountability for it, even though they didn't even do it. Who's responsible for everything? Nobody knows. But who's in charge and who gets to decide? The people. I sense scam. Something strange is going on. No, but that's the thing that's interesting, because Putin is idolized by many conservatives in the West, not because they love Russia, but because he is competent, and he's nationalistic.
Yes.
Two simple things. He's competent, he knows what he's doing, and he loves his country. Isn't it amazing that in the West you have to idolize the enemy leader for the basic tenets of competence and nationalism? As America, you should have a competent nationalistic leader, and you shouldn't have any interest in Putin. But you're right, the conservatives and many people who understand how the world works was looking for Putin to tell the truth about how broken the West is, and he didn't do that, and they were very disappointed in the interview because they thought that he was interested in coming along and educating the American public on the insanity of the American system. But he made it also very clear that America is going to treat him like a forever enemy, and he's happy with how the system currently works in America now. Yeah. He just said after the interview, he said a few days ago, "I want Joe Biden to be president. He's a very seasoned statesman, and he's been in politics for a long time." What he's saying is, I want America to fail.
Yeah.
Everything he refused to tell Americans the truth because he doesn't want to interrupt his enemy when they're making a mistake. And he wants Biden to be president because he loves a Biden presidency because he's not afraid of America anymore. So if your enemy, and you could argue about whether America and Russia should even be enemies in the first place, but if your enemy is advocating for you to continue down the path you're going, doesn't that say a lot in regards to the path you're currently undertaking? And yeah, you're right. It's kind of crazy that Americans were sitting there looking for the leader of a foreign nation to highlight the insanity of America because there's not a single American leader who will do it. Or, you go deeper down the rabbit hole, can do it. I've always wondered, like, me as stubborn as I am, if I wanted to run for politics, would I be able to say the things I want to say? Because there's many barriers on the way, right? First things first, could I even get in? Because they know I'm a wild card. So they do everything they can to stop me getting in. They'd hit me with the MSM and there'd be some scandal and I'm a human trafficker. I go to jail. They'd investigate my money and they'd say I'm a tax evader and they'd take all my money off me and they'd take my house and they'd fuck me every way along the way so that I can't even get that seat. They'd make sure I don't. And all of the big money would be behind my opponent. My opponent would have favorable media, a tour bus, a private jet, because that's how it works. It's all about money. So there's no way I could win. But let's imagine I had huge popular support and I somehow won. And then I get into Congress or the Senate or whatever, and I sit there and I know the truth about this insanity and I try and tell the truth. What happens? You get the call, or someone comes to you and says you can't say that, or they just don't turn your microphone on, or you lose your seat on the next run and you don't even get a chance. It's very interesting to me because maybe I'm optimistic. I like to believe there's some semblance of humanity left in these leaders, but every time they vote, they cuck. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'd love to try myself and find out, but I probably wouldn't like what happens. I'd probably find out like, I get it. But it's the whole system's fucking broken. It's scary. And then, like I said, because I want to be solution orientated, how do you tell people to prepare for this besides telling them to be adaptable and to a degree run away? Because that's what it is. And like I speak to many Americans and they say, you need to get some land and get a farm and learn to grow your own food. Bro, you think the feds can't raid a farm?
Yeah.
Are you stupid enough to think that if you get a farm and you grow strawberries, you're going to be okay? Then you're an idiot. The feds can raid a farm just the same. If you think you own that farm, don't pay your property tax. They'll take it off you. You don't own anything and they'll come get you anyway. So you have God and you can believe in God and pray for him to save you. You have adaptability where you can run away from the biggest problems. But besides that, where's the world going? I don't have an answer. It's scary. I'm trying to work it out. We talk about the fact that we're in a war and we say we're in a culture war. War has always ever only been narrative control. War, the primary objective of war is to demoralize your enemy so they will accept your narrative. So in a traditional hot war, you'll turn up with tanks, they'll turn up with tanks. If you win, you're going to get the enemy, they're going to be afraid of you, they're going to be demoralized, and they will accept your narrative regarding your culture, your views, your currency, your religion, whatever it is. If two religions go to war, the objective is to destroy the enemy so they absorb your religion. They accept your religion because they're demoralized. So it's demoralization and control of the narrative. And even in hot wars, the primary objective is to get control over a certain geographical area, to control the populace so you can tell that populace what to think and force them to adhere to certain ideals. We're in a war right now. You just talked about narrative control. That's exactly what it is. They're trying to demoralize us so they can give us narratives that we're forced to accept. They're trying to control, we say about controlling a geographical area with a hot war. Okay, it's not a hot war, but they're trying to control the internet and control information because it's an information war. Alex Jones, InfoWars, he's nailed it. They're trying to control intellectual property and control property online to be able to purport certain narratives to a demoralized populace. We're in a very active war right now.
Yeah.
And just because there's no guns firing, well, there are, but just because you don't see guns firing, you think you're not in a war. You are the subject of a war ongoing. There are two teams fighting right now above your head. And depending on which team wins, depends on the narratives you're going to end up holding and your children are going to end up holding. So this is what's so interesting to me when we talk about masculinity and cowardice. If you understand that a war is going on, surely if you're half a man, you're going to look at the two teams and you're going to choose one and you're going to go join the team you believe in. Only a true coward would sit down and be quiet and say, let the two teams fight it out, and whichever team wins, I'll just agree with them, which is what a lot of people are doing. But surely you should sit and see that this war can't be avoided. Yes, I'm suffering because I ran my mouth too much. Yes, they're going to try and put me back in jail. Probably going to succeed. I'll be back with the cockroaches. Fine. I decided to make that decision. I'll smile knowing that I lived true to my heart. So I'm not a coward. But if you're sitting there being a coward thinking, oh, maybe I can avoid the fight, you're really a fool. Because if you say, I refuse to fight, you don't end the war. You just end your control over the outcome of the war. And all you're doing is handing your entire fate to other people. And perhaps the good guys will win. And then you can sit there and be happy. But you'll know you were a bitch. Or perhaps the bad guys win, and you're going to wish you fought while you had a chance. But you can't avoid this fight. I run my mouth, and I'm in a lot of trouble. Cool. But the war is coming for all of us. I don't know why anyone's sitting there saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't talk. You can't escape it. If you don't want to tell the truth, you're just going to end up a casualty of war. You're going to get there anyway. So, and I'll ask you, if we lose this culture war, won't you feel better you tried? But this is my question to and I guess this is a question to the men at home. If you accept a war is ongoing, and you accept that it's for the fate of your bloodline, how do you live with yourself as a man if you're not trying to make the good team win? Perhaps we're all going to die. Perhaps we're all going to lose. Perhaps you'll all end up in jail alongside me. But don't you feel like you'd be happier as a man if you stood there and said, I fought my hardest against them, and I tried to save the children and my bloodline and my society and my land and the people I cared about. I tried my best and they got me, but I tried. How are you going to live if you just don't try? And I find it amazing that these people out there who think that, okay, if I avoid the fight and I take the money, or if I avoid the fight and I have the peace and quiet, if I avoid the fight, I have the Super Bowl. How broken are you in your soul to think those things matter more than doing what you know is right? Look at humanity. It's always been men sacrificing their lives for what they know is right. I say I sacrificed my life. I did a little bit of jail and I've lost my money, or some of my money. Boo-hoo. I haven't had to charge at gunfire yet. Yet. But there are men who were braver than I, fighting for ideas they understood less than I understand the current idea. And perhaps their fight wasn't even as important as this one. I would argue there's been times where men took up arms to resist the invading horde. And if they let that horde come in and control their society, they would have been less oppressed than we're about to be. And they sacrificed their life. And we have men here at home going, well, maybe, I don't know. This mass pandemic of cowardice is how they're getting away with this, which is why I believe, I've said this a bunch of times, I also believe it's the reason they attacked me. They find masculinity so threatening because masculinity protects. I won't sell my soul because I'm a man. That's it. I am the man. And I don't care if I go destitute. I'll knock on your door and ask for a meal, and I'll continue to walk on my way towards wherever I'm headed as a man. I'm not going to sell my soul for money ever. And anybody who's sitting here trying to avoid this battle, all I'll say to you is that there's going to come a time, perhaps when the battle's over and we've lost, that you're going to wish you started saying the right thing. Because I feel like that time's running out. Yeah. I feel like we have a few years left where there's any semblance of freedom and also any semblance of social mobility. It's soon going to be so polarized I said this on a podcast a long time ago. There's going to be have-nots and have-yachts. It really is going to get there. You have a certain amount of years to get money or get a network or tell the truth before they finally put the schism in the world, and you have the AI serfs who are controlled by their facial recognition, and you have the elites who don't have to listen anymore, and time is running out. And that's what's scary, because Patrick Bet-David, he made a video explaining that I don't know the exact numbers, 42% of the world population has an election this year.
Yeah.
Or something like that. There's the largest Muslim country has an election. America has an election. The entire world has elections in the same year. I think it's unprecedented with the number of people who get to vote. And some people see that as a massive opportunity, and I guess it is. But I see that, I'll be honest with you, as a power grab.
Yeah.
I see that as a power grab. I think there's a global power grab that's going to take place this year. I think that everyone who should win isn't going to win. I think that it's going to be the final nail in the coffin for freedom and individual liberty. I think they're going to throw me in a jail cell for a long time for talking too much. I think that anyone else who speaks up is going to start getting thrown in a jail cell. I think the people who understand what's happening are going to be too scared to speak because they're cowards. And I think that once they have absolute control, they're going to implement AI and CBDCs, and I think we're all fucked. That's what I think. And I think the only answer to that I have found, and I want to make this clear as well, because a lot of people ask about my reversion to Islam. The only kind of nations I see which worship anything above money are the Muslim nations. I think they're the only nations who sit and say there's something more important than money. No, we will not teach LGBT to children. We don't care about what money you offer us or what sanctions you put on us. That is haram. They seem to be the last people with anything that they worship above money, because if you only worship money, eventually you're going to end up controlled and corrupted. And that's why I think Islam's one of the last resistances to this insanity. And perhaps you can move to Qatar and you can worship God and you can pray 5 times a day like you're supposed to, and you can have a very happy life. But outside of that, I'm struggling to find answers. You can go to Fiji and hide on a tropical island and eat coconuts, perhaps, but not everybody can do that. It's a very small island. It's scary, and I think a huge power grab is coming. And once they cement that power, anybody who tries to talk against it is in a lot of trouble. The solutions I've come up with in my mind, of course, are money, because money is power. I want people to understand that when we talk about how money is the root of all evil, money is also the root of all good. Money is the vested time and interest of other humans. If you have a bunch of money, you have the stored energy of other people. And I'll give you a very simple example. I have money, so I can get somebody to sweep my floor. I have their stored time and energy in a note or on a bank balance where I can make them sweep a floor for as many hours as I so choose, because I can afford to pay them. It's the stored time and energy of other people. So for evil to be done, it requires the time and energy of humans. And for good to be done, it requires the time and energy of humans. So money is like gunpowder. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. It's like the germ theory. You can save people's lives, or you can create a pathogen that decimates a populace. So it can go both ways. Money is certainly an answer, because if you're completely broke, it's hard for you to influence other people and influence the world by extension. So money is super important. And the other thing I think is important is fraternity and brotherhood and living for something larger than just money itself. That's why I said about the Islamic nations live for God. And I think if you look at any period of human history, one of the things that gives me solace in this insanity is I feel like men have always believed that the world is ending. Because we're looking at it right now saying, society's over, it's finished. And I feel nervous about that. And I genuinely lose sleep about that sometimes. I don't know how people sleep so easily at night watching the Super Bowl. There's times I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, we're fucked. And I can't sleep. But I feel like during the 60s, there were men who felt that way about the hippie revolution. And during World War II, of course, they felt like the world was ending. And I'm sure Vienna felt like the world was ending when the Mongol horde arrived. And I feel like people have always felt like the world is ending. I think if you're a man and you're masculine and you're protective, you're always going to feel like danger is coming. And the world always forms and we continue, and humanity does manage to survive and progress. But it's always been a band of brothers. It's always been masculinity and fraternity which has resisted evil. It's always been the enemy's here. Who's on my team? Here's my gang. Here's my army. Here's my guys. Let's get our swords and let's go fight for it. And I feel like it's also more important than ever that people who are on the right side work together. And Patrick Bet-David said this. He said the leaders are finding the other leaders. And that's true. I think it's more important than ever that we do podcasts together, that other people who agree with us, we do podcasts and we amplify our voices. I think there has to be some degree of unity in the mission. And besides making a bunch of money, because money is power, and besides fraternity for people who are like-minded, I think those are our last chances. Those are the only chances we have. And I do believe we can slow the spread COVID talk.
Yeah.
We can resist the insanity long enough, at least.
The new norm.
Yeah. We can resist the insanity long enough, at least, for them to build a new system on the back of this revolution, if there is one, or adjust the current system enough for life to still be livable. One of the things that's kind of interesting is, I find, as like being a cultural leader, one of the things that's most interesting about it is whenever I get any hate, which is actually very rare for me. People talk about like the fact that I'm a hated person, but 98% of the internet loves me. I really believe that. I very rarely see hate comments. Very rarely. I've never met anyone in person who dislikes me. But man or woman. Women love me too. They're like, yeah, you're right. But when I do see some idiot posting something stupid, I sit and say, it's kind of crazy that I'm trying to help him. He's so ignorant and so stupid, he doesn't realize I'm fighting for his freedom. You know, it's kind of like you're trying to drag drag the horse to water, and they're like, no, you're stupid. It's like, no, you're going to die. You're trying to help the people who dislike you. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you've ever had that yet. And you need both sides. You're right, because equilibrium is always going to be the middle of both sides, right? So like if you have a seesaw, if you want it balanced, you need X amount on this side and X amount on that side. So you shouldn't be afraid of any idea as long as it's open and possible to discuss. It gets scary when you remove one side of the weight and it's not allowed to be discussed. Well, then it gets skewed, right? If we're allowed to openly discuss and openly talk, and I'm allowed to say the things I truly believe and I won't be canceled for it, then I don't fear feminism. And I don't fear LGBT. And I don't fear transgenderism. I don't fear any of these people. Sit them down at a table with me and I will decimate them in real time. And I will do it so that everybody understands I am right. Because I know I am right, and God knows I'm right, and there's no way they can beat me in an argument because it's pretty fucking simple. I have a dick and you have a vagina. It's done. And I'll say it. Done. But if I'm not allowed to talk, well, that's how they get control. And that's why they censor, and that's why it's so scary. So you're right. We're not afraid of their ideas. We just want to be able to talk openly.
Yes.
They don't want us to talk because they know they're going to lose, which proves they're wrong. And they're not even smart enough to look in the mirror and go, why am I so afraid of him talking? Well, it's because I'm incorrect. That's the truth of it. Completely. But God is always going to be the final resistance to insanity, which is what I said about the Islamic countries, because there's always has to be a line. If money can corrupt, you'll agree with anything, because money can be printed, and if the idea is on the side of money, or if money is on the side of idea, you'll agree with anything. The only thing that's ever going to stop you is if you get to a religious conviction. Only God is going to get to a point where it says, it doesn't matter how much you pay me, it doesn't matter what you make me believe, it doesn't matter what the AI machine does, it doesn't matter how you've psyoped me and indoctrinated me, it doesn't matter how long you've been trying to convince me this is true. I know that my holy book and the God I believe in says this is wrong, so I refuse to believe. Only God is the final barrier to the absolute slave mind insanity, which is why they fear God, which is why they don't want to teach children about religion. Children are the most susceptible and the most vulnerable and the most programmable people in a populace. So you have to be very careful when you analyze the ideas they're trying to purport to children, because they know children are the most susceptible to believing things. They're also the most susceptible to believing fallacy. It's kind of interesting. We don't teach children things that life will ensure they understand is true. You don't teach them about taxes or things that they're going to learn the reality of.
Money management,
because they're
responsibility.
because they're a hard reality that they're going to have to experience. So we let life teach them that. So we don't care. But we don't let life teach them these other crazy ideas, because if we did, they'd reject the crazy ideas. No, we indoctrinate the young children with the ideas that they'd naturally reject otherwise. If we deleted the idea of LGBT garbage from school and we let a child grow up to the age of 18 in a normal functioning society, in a normal functioning educational system, and said, is that a man or a woman? It'd be very clear. And everybody knows life will teach them. We're only trying to indoctrinate them against their own eyes, against their own innate understandings of how society works for these insane ideals. But anything important that life's going to teach them anyway, we refuse to teach them. So you should look very carefully at any idea they keep pushing on children, because what they're actually doing is taking an idea which they know is garbage and finding the people who are most likely to believe it. Finding the suckers and the gullible, effectively. Who's the most gullible people? Because this is bullshit. So who's gullible? Well, even the most stupid adults reject this because it's so ridiculous. Well, the children are gullible. And then they'll sit there and go, yeah, but the children don't run the world. Yet. Yet. And the psyop takes time. So it's fine. We're going to pour it on these kids, only 10% will believe, 90% will reject. Next generation, 20% believe, 80% reject. Next generation, and eventually they get what they want. And these people and these families and those who are in charge have been in charge for a very long time because they think generationally. It's a different mindset that most people at home don't understand. You're at home trying to pay your rent. You're not thinking, how do I make sure my grandchildren don't have to pay rent? You're not. And if you are, you're still doing it wrong because you've got inheritance tax and they're going to fuck you and they're going to take it all off you anyway. You're not doing it the way they're doing it. They're ensuring that there's a country somewhere that you can't even point to on a map that has a water supply. In 2072, the rights to that water supply expire, and it's now going to be owned by a private corporation that his great-grandson is going to own so people can drink water. That's how they think. So if they want a particular ideal instilled inside of a nation, even if it doesn't happen while they're alive, they don't care. And it's that degree of thinking that's hard to combat. And that's also why you have to be, to a degree, unreasonable. Because if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Yeah. Because they take an inch a year, and it adds up. So you have to draw a hard line and say, no, I won't give you an inch. I'm not, you can call me racist and homophobic and bigoted, and you can put me in jail and call me a misogynist. No, I won't give you an inch because I know where it ends up. So you have to draw that hard line, and God makes it easier to draw the hard line because it's haram. Oh, but he's gay and haram. Yeah, but haram. Hard line. That's why they don't like God, because there's a hard line. They don't want you to have a hard line. What they want you to have is what most conservatives have. Because conservatives are rational, reasonable people. Yeah. And what they do is they give you a line, and the conservatives are like, oh, maybe it's nuanced and it's a bendy line. And slowly, bro, the conservatives of today were the liberals of 20 years ago. Well, that's beautiful, because if you tolerate everything, you stand for nothing. And the problem with Christianity, it's based on this endless idea of forgiveness and tolerance, and that's been corrupted and polluted, like you said, by some bad actors. Yeah. And I feel like Christianity's lost a lot of its presence in recent times, and that breaks my heart. I'm a Muslim now, but that breaks my heart, because people of the book are people of the book, and we need more God, not less God. And I don't care what God you worship, if you worship God and you're a good person. And it's a shame, really, that Christianity's reached a point where it's mocked so openly and so publicly in Christian nations. That breaks my heart. And I think the attraction of Islam, for me personally, and also for a lot of other people now, is there's a lot of people who are just tired of being mocked. And they want a religion which they respect and other people respect. And you can disagree with Islam all you want, and whether you're an atheist or you're a Christian, and you can disagree with it all you want, and I'm not an Islamic scholar to argue that point. However, I will argue the point that it is the most respected religion on the planet. Nobody openly mocks it without fear. If they do, they at least make sure they're very careful about hiding their face or hiding behind a police barricade. Whereas people will mock Christianity openly and think it's a joke. And I feel like it's time for the Christians to take power back by ensuring that their religion is respected. I have some good friends in England who are particularly conservative, and they're upset by the changing demographics of the nation. And as I'm a mixed race American living in Romania who's reverted to Islam. So I'm a complete mongrel. However, I grew up in England, and I do understand the innate culture of England, and I do understand why they feel threatened by all these outside people coming in, and I do understand how that's negatively affecting the crime rate, and I do agree with them that they want England to be British. Why shouldn't they? It's their nation. I completely respect it, and a lot of them are very anti-Islam, and I try and explain to them, I agree with you completely in your points of view. That may be confusing to you of why I can be a Muslim, but I can agree with the fact that you want to preserve the UK. But you're mad at Islam like it's Islam's fault, and it's not. It's a universal law. It's a law of the universe that power vacuums get filled. You can't, as Muslims, turn up to a strongly, truly Christian nation and just conquer the religious landscape if Christianity is being absolutely respected. Perhaps in America it's not so bad, but in Europe, people keep complaining about the spread of Islam. Well, where's Christianity? If you leave a complete power vacuum, what do you expect to happen? In America, you just name there's certain parts of it which are still Christian. You'll struggle to find very many Christian parts of Europe. We're here in Romania, which is one of the most Christian countries in the world, and Eastern Europe does have a degree of Christianity left. But in the West, there's no God at all besides Islam. You're either an atheist or you're a Muslim. And if I had to choose between the two, or if I had to choose which one I'd want my son to be, I'd choose for them to be Islamic. I often say this to people. I say, would you rather your son come home and say he's transgender or say he's a Muslim? Because we're getting to that point.
Yeah.
If Christianity keeps failing, you're going to end up with a son that's either going to come home and be a liberal or come home and be a Muslim. Which one would you choose? I'd actually like to ask this to all the conservative Christians in America, and they'll say, Jesus is king. And I'll say, good, I respect that. But let's pretend for a thought experiment that I'm right and that Christianity is little by little, like we talked about, inch by inch, giving up power and being decimated in real time. And at some point in the future, you have two choices: liberal insanity and transgenderism, or Islam. Which one would you choose? And I think most Christians would actually sit, if they answered honestly, and say, I'd rather them worship God. I'd rather Islam. So I love the fact that there's some religious conviction left in America.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned about the fact that one of the primary goals of religion shouldn't only be the salvation of souls. It should be the sanctimoniousness, if that's a word, or the sanctimony of the society it presides over. It should be responsible for preserving the culture. Christianity should be responsible for preserving the culture of the USA. And in certain areas, it seems to be successful, but in many areas, it is failing. Whereas Islam, I feel like, is better at preserving the culture of the nations it subsides over. So if you measure the success of a religion, it's hard to say Islam's not a successful religion. Islamic nations are Islamic, and they feel Islamic. And it's hard to go against the Islamic norms and the Islamic thoughts in Islamic nations. Whereas in Christian nations now, I just feel like they're so publicly attacked. And that truly breaks my heart. My brother's a Christian. Him and I have very long debates about Islam versus Christianity, and we don't do it publicly because I don't want to start a fire, because I see Christians as my brothers. We're in the same team.
Yeah.
But it really breaks my heart. It's upsetting. When I see these gay preachers and the Pope talking about same-sex marriage and how important transgenderism, that breaks my heart. And I'm not even Christian. I just think it's so sad that it's happening. It's super interesting you said that, because yes, I do think, like, especially Christianity and Islam, I've read the Bible and I've read the Quran, and they're so much closer than people realize. People think that, especially traditional American Christians, as you just named, if you were to get the average Christian from Georgia in the countryside, he will see Islam as this far off Arabic religion.
Yeah.
It's for Middle Eastern people. Well, so is Christianity. It's from the same place. So they're from the same place. Only 20% of Muslims are Arabic anyway. There's huge Islamic nations which are Asian. There's Indonesia, Malaysia, there's huge Islamic nations. So they work hand in hand. And I feel like perhaps Christianity and Islam humans are fallible, and perhaps we don't completely understand what God is or the idea of God, and we're trying to find it in different ways. It's like saying a sentence in English or a sentence in German. You're saying the same thing, but you're saying them in different ways. You know, I talk often about how masculinity is under attack and how they're damaging our innate masculine instincts. And one of the largest innate masculine instincts is protectiveness, and also, to a degree, disagreeableness. If you're truly masculine, you're protective. And I think as an extension of that, you're disagreeable. I'll talk about me as a person. If somebody comes into me with a brand new idea, which conflicts with mine, they can explain it to me, and perhaps over time I'll adapt to it. But my instant reaction is no. No. Who are you? Why are you here? That's my instant reaction. And I think that's the masculine instinct. That's why men are protective. It's why we're tribal, right? If a different tribe member arrived at your tribe, you'd be like, who are you? Bro, don't come near my chicks. Get away from my tent. That's how we evolved for the longest period of human history. And I look at now how masculinity is in decline. And when you have no innate physical capability to defend yourself, you're much more likely to subdue and effectively cuck power structures. And when you talk about things like this with the robot, I see a generation of future men with basically no testosterone level who just fall in love with these robot machines, and they don't see the danger in it because they're ostriches. They don't want to see the danger, because if they see the danger, they have to fight, and they don't want to fight because they can't. So instead, they're going to pretend there's no danger, and they're going to worship instead. You see this now with liberals. Liberals worship government. They worship government like it's God, because, oh, government, please protect us, please save us, because they're cowards and they're weak. So they worship government and think it's a good thing. And that's certainly coming for the AI machine. The worst thing about the destruction of the human race at the hands of AI is that there's going to be a huge percentage of the population begging for it.
Yeah.
Begging for it. The same men now who beg girls on OnlyFans to ignore them, who will send a girl money and say, please don't reply, ignore me, and enjoy it. The same people now who beg for the government to take their money off of them to stop the sun from being hot. These are the same people who are going to be begging the AI machines to control every aspect of their life. You're going to see future fetishes where a man is going to be the robot for the robot. I'll do the dishes. Please, R2D2. I'll do your dishes. I love you. That's what's going to come because the human race is so fucked. The only solution to this is innate masculinity because God created us with it to protect. That's why God created masculinity, to protect ourselves and others. But it's disappearing. So I'm telling you, the future of AI is more scary than most realize. You could sit down in 50 years from now with people, you could get the whole world in the concert hall and say, AI is going to destroy all of us. We have to get rid of it. And there's going to be someone at the back who goes, but she strokes my pee-pee anytime I want. And he's going to just selfishly accept the annihilation of the human race for his sexual gratification, or because she's his friend, like you said, or because she raised him, because he's not man enough to say, no, we have to protect first. And all of that's disappeared from society now. Protect first has kind of vanished, and we're left in this insane quagmire of different ideals constantly competing. You can apply this to something else. We just talked about AI. Let's apply it to something far more simple. The border crisis. A man thinks, I don't know who these people are. I'm sure some of them are good, but one of them might be bad. Yeah. And if one of them is bad, none of them should come. Because if you gave me a box of Cheerios and told me one Cheerio was poisoned, I wouldn't eat from the box of Cheerios because I'm not an idiot. Women will use an emotional argument. Well, most of them need help. Most of them need to be saved, and we can save them all, which is asinine and incorrect anyway, but that's the emotional argument. And weak men, even worse, will pretend there's no danger at all, because if they accept there's danger, they now need to be brave. And what's the one thing a coward never wants to be? Brave. So a weak man will sit there and say, oh, they're not criminals. How do you know they're criminals? There's already criminals here. You're a criminal. You're homophobic. You're racist. They just want a better life. And they'll ignore the problem so they don't have to ever look in the mirror and realize they're a pussy. They'll do anything to cope their way out of having to be brave and be protective. And then we end up in the situation we're in. If men were still raised with the innate masculine responsibility to protect and provide, we'd be a lot more careful about everything, not just the border, but AI. Because it's very obvious where it's all going to go.
Yeah.
And it's not just robots as you imagine robots walking around. I'm sure that'll actually be the cool part of AI. There's actually a far more dystopian, less interesting, and more scary version of AI, which is where we're almost at. Facial recognition cameras on every single corner, 15-minute CEs, electric cars, which can turn off if you try and drive into the wrong area. That's why they want everyone to go electric. Nothing to do with the environment. That's bullshit. So they can turn your car off. That's why they want you to have an electric car. If I get in my Ferrari, you can't turn it off. You got to chase me down, sir. Good luck, police. You got to catch me. I'm good. But if you're an electric car, they just say, what's his serial number? Boop. Turn off the car. Keep the doors locked. He was wrong thinking. Facial recognition on every corner, like I said. 15-minute cities, like I said. They'll control your money. They'll control where you go. They'll control if you can fly or not. They'll control your food. The AI is going to be a little camera in the corner linked to your mobile phone and your national ID from the digital system. And you're not even going to see a cool robot. And AI is already going to wreck your life. You don't even get a hand job from a robot. You don't get anything. It's bullshit. That's where AI is going before the cool robots come. Bro, there are no AI hand jobs coming. It's just dystopian. It's just dystopian insanity. That's where we're going to end up. And as the matrix cracks and they try and rebuild this new system, unless we're very clear to people about the truth of things, we're going to end up far worse than we ever were before. Far worse.
I'm still thinking about this idea
AI hand jobs?
No, of a man walking next to a robot carrying the robot's purse.
Bro, 100%. Bro, these dudes are going to be fully cooked for these fucking things. I've seen dudes fully cooked for chicks, which really ain't worth that much. So if you're telling me you're going to give him an obedient virgin, effectively, which he buys out the box, bro, he's going to be on his knees every night begging, please don't leave me. You're going to have robots programmed to be one step out the door so the man can spend his life begging to keep her there because he's going to love it. The future is so fucked. I don't think people realize, and it can all be fixed if men were men, but they're deliberately attacking that. And they're attacking it for the reason I said earlier. Men are protective, and if you want to damage a society, you have to remove the protectors of society. We used to walk in, the Romans would turn up to the Greeks and kill all the military-age males. So now what do? They can't kill us all, so they try and neuter our minds and neuter our innate masculine tendencies. If you're a man, you're toxic. You're toxically masculine. If you're a man, in any regard, you're toxic. If you say to your wife, don't go out drinking with all those other men who I don't know, you're my wife, stay home. You don't go drinking with men because we're in love and we're married. you're controlling and you're toxically masculine. You're a bad person. How does that even, how can society even function under that premise? How do you even have a wife? How do you have a marriage? How do you have anything? Nothing even makes sense anymore. The ideals that they're purporting and the way they want men to live literally doesn't even make sense. It's impossible to live as a man that way. So you have two options. You either become a wrong thinker, like I am, like you are, like a lot of people are. And if you get too big, that you pay the price because they chop off the head of the snake. Or you absorb all the garbage they put out there and try and poison your mind with, and you end up miserable.
Do you think that they are deliberately taking away masculinity from men, or do you think that there's a role that men themselves play and they're just willingly giving it up?
Well, we have personal accountability in all things. But I think it's a long and deliberate psyop, and most people don't realize that psyops are built on a very long time scale. People imagine psyop as you watch a 30-minute movie and then your brain's been changed and you've been brainwashed. That's not how psyops work. Brainwashing works over the passage of time, and it works with the slow and gradual normalization of ideas. I'll give you an example. You just talked about how 60 years ago, if you told somebody that a man could be a woman, a woman could be a man, that would be insane. Now we will sit here and still say it's insane, but there's a large subsect of the population who would sit here and argue with us. Our grandchildren will not think it's insane at all. They'll think it's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
And as much as we try our best to fight against it, and as much as we try our best to resist the tide of darkness, it's going to come, and they are going to win.
Yeah.
So when they put these psyops in order, they think generationally. As you said earlier, because I like to reference back, you talked about these families that have been controlled for a very long time. Well, they're thinking about the world their grandchildren are going to inherit, and if they want to purport an idea which is negative for the society because it benefits them, they're going to think, I may not see the benefits of it, but Rothschild number 89, he will. So we'll just put the psyop over a long enough period of time. That's what they do. And you're saying men are giving it up. Yeah, slowly and gradually we are giving it up. All of us do it. Even me, who is very conscious of these things, catches myself do it. I'll give you a perfect example. COVID was the great example. They took 100% of your rights away. Then they gave 80% of them back. Oh, you can go out now. Just wear a mask sometimes, but you can go out and you're free again. Well, wait, a year ago I was 100% free. Now I'm 80% free. But most people feel free because they were constrained. So they take everything, they give you most of it back, and they keep that little bit. And they take everything, and they give you most of it back, and they keep that little bit. Before you know it, you're fucking begging for a robot to give you a hand job as she's one
This
foot out
damn
the door.
robot.
Bro. But that's where it's going to come. Because also, the innate masculine desire to reproduce is also very important, right? Men want to have children, and it's hard for a man to find a wife. It's hard for a man to find a woman to have his kids. A woman can find somebody to get her pregnant any day of the week, but for a man to do that, it's actually difficult. In days of old, you had to be an important man or a man of stature or a man of honor. Why did men join the army? Because they got to come home with that medal so they could get a wife. They'd go risk their lives for this. You had to be a man who did the right things, a man who was strong, a man who was capable, a man who was competent, etc., etc. Now we have a huge subsect of the population of men who can't get partners, and they've been outsourced to pornography and insanity and OnlyFans and prostitution and all this other garbage, which is one conversation. That's going to be replaced by AI and robots coming soon as well, which subdues the men. If the men don't have to become strong to find a mate, then they're not going to become strong, which once again makes it easier for the population to be controlled. If you had a population where all the men had to be honorable, virtuous men of capability for them to be able to reproduce, you would have an honorable, virtuous, capable society. But if you say to men, you can be a lazy idiot, this robot's can give you a hand job, or you can watch porn or OnlyFans or whatever it is, and you can just sit at home and you'll be semi-satisfied and you don't even have to work. You can get food stamps, or you can work a bullshit minimum wage job and we'll take most of it in taxes, but you'll barely survive and scrape some living off at the bottom. And then when their life is miserable and they feel depressed, you can convince them it's someone else's fault, because that's what they do. They come along to these people and say, yeah, your life's shit. It's not because you didn't try. It's because of the white people, the black people, the yellow people, the Republicans, the Democrats, whoever, and make them hate-filled. Now you have a whole bunch of hate-filled, useless humans who do nothing to benefit society as a whole, subdued with garbage, and they are basically agents of the Matrix, because their mind can be programmed to hate anyone they're told to hate. And that changes in time, as we've learned. If Trump's in power, there's a big racial divide. If he's not in power, the riots stop. And they just change it around. Who do we need the agents of the Matrix to hate this week? And they just, boom, turn them all on, because they're sitting there with nothing else in their life and no honor and no dignity. And they're used to continue the degradation of society. It's insane. Absolutely. And that's the only thing that people will give up freedom for is safety.
Yeah.
That's the human mind will only accept a loss in freedom for safety. So you're completely right. They could stop it and they decide not to. And they're also normalizing it.
Yeah.
I speak to people. I spoke to someone who lives in Chicago yesterday. And I was saying, why do you live in Chicago on purpose? Like, you have money and you're there on purpose. Like, you're waking up in Chicago on, like, leave. Like, what's wrong? He goes, it's not that bad. It's really not that bad if you avoid this part, that part, that part. And it's not that bad if you don't go out at night. And then I'm like, I live in Bucharest, Romania, the capital of one of the poorest countries in Europe, and I can walk around at night and I drive a $5 million Bugatti and I have a $500,000 watch and I have no problems here. You've been so normalized to crime that you say it's not that bad if you only see crime once a week and avoid most of the city. It's crazy how quickly people become normalized to these things. And you're right. Eventually, it's going to get to a crisis point, a tipping point. Like I said earlier, when the matrix finally cracks, they're going to come along with a new solution. The new solution is going to be draconian control because it's all governments have ever done. It's all they know how to do. And unless we get enough people understanding the truth and the light, unless we get enough people understanding the reality of the chessboard, we're in trouble. Because when they come along and say, we're going to have a new judicial system with AI and this, we need people to sit and say, wait, the old judicial system was corrupt. How do we ensure the new one isn't? But if people are sitting there going, oh, the justice system's good, and now we have this new super justice system. No, you have a super corrupt system and you're screwed. And you're completely right. They're normalizing these things because they're trying to remove the freedom of people and replace it with safety, because all governments have ever wanted since the dawn of human time is control of their populace. Yeah. It's what allows them to be most effective. I'm not going to even be mad at the government. If you're an ant, let's look at it from a business perspective. You have a business, I have a business, right? If I have a business, I have 110 people who work for me. If one of them didn't listen to me, I'd fire him. Yeah. Why would I keep him? My business is not effective if I have somebody inside of my company who has wrong think, right? They think wrong. I believe certain ideas. This is my company, and we have this one person here who disagrees with everything I say. That's annoying. I want him to go. That's fair, and everybody would agree with me. Well, now you have to understand why the government hates us. The government wants everyone to comply and obey and do as it says and as it wants so it can run the government how it sees fit. I disagree with that. I am the bad employee. Yeah. I am the person who is annoying to them, especially someone like us, because we have a voice. Not only are we bad employees, we inspire other employees to be bad. Now everyone's listening to us going, wait, he has a point. I don't like this company anymore. I don't like how it runs. That's unfair. That's unjust. Then they want to fire us. But you can't fire us, so you have to put us in jail, or teach us a lesson, or sue us, or take our money, or slander us with the media machine. They have to punish us somehow. It's as simple as that, because a government is sitting there as a business, which is how it should be run. They're corrupt to the core, but a government is sitting there saying, how do we run our government as effectively as possible? Well, we want robots. We don't want humans with too much individual liberty and too much individual ideas and too much freedom. No, we want robots who comply so we can be effective. And that's why they're going to come along, and any new system they build is going to have that in mind. They want draconian control over all of us. And if you don't understand that, then you're an idiot. They make new laws every day. I've never seen them take one away. Yeah. What do we say about them slowly incrementing and damaging your freedom? They make a new law every day. That's law, let alone regulations. When's the last time you've checked IRS regulations? They change daily. You don't even know if you're in trouble or not. Never. You're in trouble if they want you to be. Everyone at home is in trouble if they want you to be. You can't even keep up with how fast this garbage changes. So they're constantly stealing your freedom from you little by little, incrementally, because they're trying to make robots of us all. And it's scary. Exactly. And then you understand that your ability to speak freely is directly correlated with your insignificance. Because if you get too loud as the bad employee, and because living a normal life means you break laws, they come along and they screw you. That's what they do. They come along and go, let's get him. And everyone's guilty. That's what's so amazing to me. The people with the slave mind at home watch this, or people who say, Andrew's a human trafficker, or he did this, or he did that. Don't you understand that you're just insignificant and stupid? Because if you had a voice that was large, that people listened to, that was saying things different than what the government want you to say, you would be guilty of something. Everyone's guilty. And especially most of these laws are so insane and subjective. I don't want to go into my case because I'm bored of talking about it. But my case is that human trafficking is forcing somebody to do something for financial gain. I was supposedly doing it via the Loverboy method by being nice. So I nicely helped girls get big on TikTok because they asked for my advice and I told them what times to post. I didn't even make any money from it. The girls made money and they called that human trafficking. Do you have any idea what stretch of the imagination that is? But all the law is subjective. They can just subjectively go, maybe, and then they don't care if I get found innocent. They don't give a shit. They've dragged my name through the mud. 2 years, I went to jail, took all my money. Now I have to go to court, endless millions on legal bills. They don't care. It damages my influence. Why did this case even pop up in the first place? Because someone called the Romanian government and said, who's this guy talking so much in your country? Who is he? Look at him. Find something. And they're like, well, he's pretty innocent. TikTok. Go.
Got him.
And that's in Romania. It's worse in America. Like you said, 20 federal laws.
Yeah.
They got Roger Ver, the Bitcoin guy. I don't even know about this. He was big on Bitcoin. He was annoying them. They got him, they raided his house or something to do with Bitcoin, ended up busting him, ATF, for moving fireworks across state lines because he bought fireworks for his kids in another state. He did 4 years in jail or something ridiculous. If they want to get you, they're going to get you. So you're living under this system, the judicial system, fair, justice for all. But as soon as you annoy anyone and they say your name to a prosecutor, you're going to jail. And now they're going to make a new justice system for your safety. Don't worry, we're going to take our freedom away for your safety. And we're going to involve digital IDs and face ID and all these things like we talked about. But you'll be fine as long as you do exactly as we say. I agree with you.